let's be honest, money plays a huge role in any relationship. And whether you've been together for decades or just starting out, financial stress can really put a strain on even the strongest partnerships. So today, we're going to talk about all the questions that couples need to address and answer about finances and retirement. We'll grab Ryan and we'll start right now. Welcome in. Glad to have you on another episode of Perfect Game Retirement. I am Ben George, joined with Ryan Ledden at Black Oak Asset Management. Ryan, we kind of built this topic after Valentine's. We're thinking about this month being all focused about love. And I know couples, you work with them all the time, and you probably see a lot of these arguments firsthand, right, when it comes to money. And we know that this is the root of a lot of issues that couples deal with.
Yeah, I've had several meetings where the couple looks at each other and they're like, "You don't want to hear all this," or it's getting too personal, and they're like, "You're basically a marriage counselor." And in many regards, we talked on previous episodes about being a behavior coach, and that's essentially what we are. And so that falls into relationships and marriage, and because sometimes you just have two very different brains that are in personalities that are kind of merging together, and then they're trying to figure all this stuff out. So a lot of times I'm the mediator in between the two, and just listening and hearing them and seeing them interact. But there's a lot more to it than picking investments, like we've said on previous episodes. We're listeners and behavior coaches.
Yeah, and you do a good job of that. I know it can probably be a little stressful for you at times, but it's part of it. And I know that you enjoy doing that, kind of helping find that compromise, finding solutions, kind of putting that puzzle together. So start with one of the big questions. I know they say opposites attract, right? That's kind of always been the mantra. But spenders versus savers, a big opposite. I know that's a battle that happens a lot, especially as you get close to retirement. So how do you help keep the peace, or what can couples do to maybe find that compromise between spending and saving?
Yeah, and I used to teach, and shout out and kudos to Dave Ramsey putting his Financial Peace University class together that a lot of churches and organizations put on, and I taught that class for years and years and years, and haven't taught it in a couple of years just because my kids' activities. I can't commit to being there every single week, even though I can't stand that travel sports have eaten up Sundays like it's nothing, because faith's a big part of our family's lives. So we try to get there when we can. We try to be good about that, but we are certainly not perfect. So committing to teaching a 9-week class and being there every single week is tough. But there's a whole section, a unit, if you will, in Financial Peace University that talks about the saver and the free spirit. And there usually is, not always, but there's usually very diabolical two different types of personalities kind of merging together. And that's where, as an advisor, as a behavior coach, if you will, is figuring out a compromise, is kind of listening to the analytical nerd, and then the free spirit who does not want to be analytical. So, and sometimes there's a common ground between both of those, but you want to hear both sides of it. You want to, scratch that itch for the person that wants, 47 different categories of a budget, and then you hear the other side, the free spirit, they just want like two. And you got to have a compromise in between there. So okay, let's have 7 or 8 different categories. Let's don't have that many, but two's a little too broad when it comes to that. So we try to find that compromise to be able to help each side, so they don't have these financial arguments all the time. So there's got to be a happy medium between the two.
Yeah, I got to find that happy medium. Love may be forever, Ryan, but financial support maybe shouldn't be. And I'm talking about families with children, right? There comes a time where you kind of have to ask yourself, how do you avoid sacrificing your own future, what your plans for retirement are, what your dreams are, and sacrificing that for your family, whether it be education costs or whatever expenses you might have for your children. They are definitely expensive, but how do you kind of find that balance again and figure out, how do I prioritize myself over my family? Because that's not something that is ingrained in us to do.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. And sometimes this is a big hurdle sometimes with people that we do work with, as far as how they support their family. And you know, my kids are eighth grade and fifth grade, and you know the travel ball sports world is crazy. So sometimes I think, you know, luckily with my job and the flexibility that I have, is it allows me to do those things. But I think I'm like, man, this is. I really don't want to know the exact cost that I spend every single year on travel sports. I enjoy doing it. My kids enjoy doing it. I said the second you do not want to do this, please, for the love, tell me. We'll go do something else, or you can still play the game, but maybe not on the, as high level as you guys play. But they've continued to want to do that. But so not only just the age that my kids are at, and the cost that they have. I had a CFP professor. He says if you have kids, that they vaporize money, and there's a lot of truth to that. They do vaporize money in some regards, but you do have to be intentional. Then obviously when they get to those college ages, you know, spend how much you spend on college. Like there needs to be a rational decision making process when it comes to what school they go to. Is that education really worth the $80,000 or $90,000 a year that you're going to pay? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe that school is worth it, but what major are they going to do when they get there? So you have to make decisions, but then also you have to sit down with your kids and say, look, we have enough money to pay for this. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to apply for scholarships. You're going to have to apply for grants. A lot of times parents, they have this guilt, this parent guilt, that they have to pay for absolutely everything, and then they have a student loan that they're going to have to end up paying until they retire. There's a lot of different ways for kids to go to school and to pay for school, and there's really only one way to retire, and that's based off of what you save, what Social Security you have, what pensions you have. It's what you do, and retire with dignity, so you're not moving back in with your kids, you know, one day and living in their basement. So you want to try to avoid that at all costs, but it is with lifestyles and the cost of everything being so expensive. It's very hard. It's very difficult for parents to tell their kids no, because of quote unquote everyone else is doing it, so we have to do it as well. So it's there's a fine line there, and we have to help them with that.
Well, I know a lot of couples that decide to keep their finances a bit separate. Everybody has a different approach to that. But is there ever a time that it's too late to merge? Is it okay, to kind of keep what's mine is mine in retirement? I know this is something you need to be discussing though before you get there.
Yeah, everyone's got a different rationale when it comes to this, especially with blended families. There's some separation there that sometimes needs to happen. If it's your first marriage, me personally, I just don't see why you keep things separate. Some people make it work. Again, that is my personal opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong if you keep things separate, but it's one big pie anyways, and it just seems easier now. If you want everything to go into one account and then you each have your own spending accounts where you kind of get your own little certain allowance every single month, which I highly recommend. That way, whatever your allowance is per month, whatever you want to spend it on, it cannot be asked by the other spouse. So I think that builds in a lot of freedom. Now, obviously, depending on your debt situation, your budget situation, that depends on how much that allowance is per month. But I think it's a you need to do that for a little bit of freedom. Now, some people again keep theirs completely separate. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Again, that's not how we do it in our family, but I'm okay with it. Now, if it's a blended family, yes, sometimes it needs to be kept separate. If it's a blended family, I really think sitting down with an attorney, doing a prenup, and a prenup is not because you think your second marriage is going to fail. You do it so you don't disinherit your own kids. So I think prenups are a valuable planning tool that you probably should sit down with an attorney to do. But again, we work with all different walks of life of people, and so if they want to keep things separate, we just have to make that adjustment. But if they ask our opinion, then we certainly give it.
All right, one last one, because I know, much like the prenup conversation, talking about wills and inheritances is tough, right? It's not a it's not a fun conversation, not one you want to think about. But I know it's a big part of preparing for the future and what your intentions are for your money. So how can couples start that estate planning conversation, Ryan, and how do you help assist with that?
Yeah, so it needs to be discussed. Again, you hit the nail on the head. It's a difficult discussion to have sometimes, but it really doesn't need to be that difficult. If people are bickering over what your wishes are going to be, and you're telling them these things while you're alive, then maybe someone else gets that. Maybe a charity gets that asset that they're complaining about or kind of disgruntled over. So just communication is key. That way, you're not leaving behind a potential fight on your hands. It's not good for anyone. But if you have those discussions beforehand, again, we give clients access to a estate planning tool called wealth.com. We purchase that as advisors, and clients can have access to it. And we'll sit down with people. It's a very user friendly interface. It takes them through decision trees, and then based off of their decisions, it just takes them down a path to create an estate plan. But if they want to sit with us and go through it and talk it out, we're more than happy to do that as well. Once the will is done and the estate documents are done, then you print them off and get them notarized, which we have a notary in here, which we just added that because we wanted to keep that all in house as well, so they can get it notarized, a couple of witnesses, and boom, you have your estate plan in place. So it's definitely important, but having that communication while people are still alive, it goes a long way. And usually those conversations aren't quite as difficult as you may think they are.
So for any couple, Ryan, that's looking to start that planning and want to sit down with someone like yourself at Black Oak Asset Management, do you encourage both sides to be there, both parties to be involved in the process, or can one kind of lead the way on the financial side?
Yeah, the introductory call that we do with people, it's even more valuable if both of them are on the conversation. But if one can only be there, that's fine. But the longer in person or Zoom call, we really do stress for both of them to be there. That's okay if one is more into this stuff than the other. That's okay, but we still want their presence there, because they may think of a question that the analytical person who really digs this stuff may not think about. So again, it's okay if this is not the hour of your time that you think is best spent, but it's very important. So both of them needing to be there is imperative. Usually we reschedule it if one can't be there unless it's some extenuating circumstance. But I don't want to hear the reason of, oh, my spouse, they're just not into this, so they'll just listen to whatever I say. Red flag. We don't do it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you can begin by going to speakwithryan.com, schedule a complimentary consultation there. It only takes 15, 20 minutes, that introductory call. Again, hopefully both spouses are inclined to join that call, but begin that process, because there's a lot to talk through and sort through, and communication is always key. And it's always good to have someone there to help mediate the process, which Ryan is happy to do if necessary. But hopefully this helps you out. As always, we appreciate you watching Perfect Game Retirement. Please hit subscribe on the channel. Helps us continue to grow. We appreciate your support. We'll talk to you on the next episode.